Hello, my name is Grian, and remember how I said Mystery Shack was coming up? Well, that day is today. So, I hadn't actually watched Gravity Falls before I started, but I've binged watched it all the way up to the end, and I absolutely love it. We are in a new golden age of cartoons, so let's get straight into building the Mystery Shack. So, straight away, I'm going to do what I always do when I start building something. Laying the foundation and trying to get the shape. I'm using a few reference pictures to try and get as close to the real thing as possible in Minecraft. In general, cartoons don't really translate particularly well because of the straight lines and how you can't match the angles that they have sometimes. This is particularly difficult for the Mystery Shack, who has quite a few angles, especially very gradual ones, so you can see that I've tried to use half slab and staircase to try and mimic that gradual curve, but it is rather impossible using the slants that I am. I then move on to use black stained clay, or grey, I can't quite remember, the colours of clay don't really match up. Anyway, to create the roof, I then move on to changing the oak wood to spruce because I thought it matched the colour a bit more, even though in the reference picture it is a lighter colour. I then go and make the entrance. I want to point out though, while we're here, that when you use a reference picture, you should use it for inspiration and not try and copy it exactly. If I was copying it exactly, I wouldn't be able to create the Mystery Shack as I am now. I'm using it as a basis and then trying to translate it into Minecraft. Moving on, I'm now going into the roof and I'm trying to texture it to try and create that tiled effect. So I'm creating a very varied height on the roof and then adding half slabs of two different colours to try and make it look like a very weathered tiled effect. So now I'm going on to make the sort of the gift shop area. Unfortunately, because of the way cartoons work, I can't do the interior, quite literally, because it wouldn't fit inside the build that I've done. Anyway, so I'm working on the sort of girder. The Mystery Shack is kind of like in a shambly state, so I'm trying to mimic it as best as I can using those grey blocks, and just anything that I can do to make it look really kind of worn down, I'm going to try and add it. So now I'm going to work on the other side of the roof using exactly the same technique, so I'm just going to copy paste some of the other side, extend that over, and then go around to the other side again and work on the Mystery Shack sign, one of the biggest features of the Mystery Shack. I'm using all the parts of the build just to try and complete it best I can without having to build it manually, so I'm just copy pasting things around and adding everything that I can. So now I'm going to work on the back porch, which isn't seen too much in the series, but it is quite important. There's a couch there where some scenes happen. Now going on creating all the little bits and bobs before I work on the Mystery Shack sign properly. Before I was just laying it out. So I actually made a mistake here. You can see that I've tried to make the letters too small. I'm going to have to make them one block higher on each sign and add all the different letters before completing it with the lights over the top and of course that S that's fallen off the shack. And now I need to go on and fix all the little bits and bobs that maybe didn't fit before, so I'm going to replace those fences holding it up with log because it didn't look too good, it was really spindly. So that was just a quick job, and then I need to go around and just finish up all the little bits that I didn't quite complete, especially the roof. I didn't finish detailing all the roofs with those tiles, which I probably should have done, adding that horn on the top, or I don't know what they're called, and all the little details before going and finishing up the back room, which I couldn't actually find an angle picture of, so I'm just guessing that it's got just roof and wall on it. The cartoon doesn't actually show it too often. So just going to finish off the wall with exactly the same style as the rest of the build, fairly simple stuff, before moving around back to the porch and adding those details, including the sofa where some scenes happen, and adding all the little details. I actually put the gift shop sign on the wrong bit, so kudos to me for being an idiot. That sign should be where I am now, but I'm adding all the overgrowth now, all the green blocks, the leaves, a bit of fern, trying to make it look as grown over as possible without adding too much to it. So that came out quite nicely, layering those green blocks over the top gives it that nice effect. And now I'm going on adding a few more details like the little fridge and the vending machine outside, before moving back round, adding a few signs here and there, all these like little details. The Mystery Shack has these little minute details absolutely everywhere, and that's what makes it so intriguing. So I have to add that sign, and then the all-important totem pole, which, by the way, is in completely different places every time you see it in a picture. So I tried to make it as thin as possible with as much detail as possible, which is quite difficult considering it's only like 1 block thick. And there we go, the Mystery Shack is mostly done. I now need to add the surrounding area, because in my opinion you can't just build the Mystery Shack, you have to have everything around it as well, including the car park, the car itself, you know, the mystery tour buggy, all those little logs everywhere, and most importantly the little bit of terrain and the trees. The trees are probably the most important thing, but you have to prepare it all first. So I'm now going to just add lots of grass everywhere. I'm going to texture all the car park to be coarse dirt and dirt, and I'm going to make a little bit of like a hill around just to have that transition. Add loads of grass blobs everywhere and give those a little bit. And also there's a big grass gradient change, so I'm just going to change the biome to try and mimic that as best as possible. I probably could have done that better looking back at it now. Add grass everywhere, and then finally adding all the trees, which is going to take a little while. Pasting all those trees around. By the way, I did not make these trees, I will put credit in the description. I'm pasting all these trees around, 3 different kinds, because the Gravity Falls forest, it all looks fairly similar. This was the closest thing I could find in a pinch, and I thought it looked really nice. So I'm just going to be adding them, trying to make sure that I paste them between every single gap, so that when you look through, you can't see behind the trees, just like in Gravity Falls, where they just have that perception of darkness where you can't quite see anything past the deep forest. That's going to take a little while, as I said, but I'm now done, and I'm going to make the tour buggy. I've never made any sort of vehicle before in my life, believe it or not, so this is my first little thing, buggy, and I'm just going to try my best. I know it doesn't look great, so I just tried to mimic the colour, add the roof and everything, and I'm done. And as always, I'm going to add a little cinematic piece for your enjoyment with the Gravity Themes theme tune. Here you go. And that's it for the Mystery Shack. I really enjoyed making this. It took a long time. The total build time for this one was 2 hours and a bit. It was actually quite difficult. I found that using the reference pictures was incredibly difficult because cartoons play little tricks. Whenever they build a new scene, they just change and edit what they need for whatever scene. So I just took the very basics, and although I messed up a couple of times, I thought it came out really nicely. While we're here, take a look at some of the amazing fan arts that I've gotten over the past few days after I said that I would feature them in a video. Some of these are really nice, I love them, and I really enjoy talking to you, so follow me at Twitter, and I also made a Facebook page for those of you that don't like Twitter or just enjoy Facebook, so I'll leave a link for that in the description as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any more suggestions, please let me know. These were entirely you. I didn't even know about Gravity Falls until all the comments told me to go and watch it. So thank you for that. It's one of my favourite shows now. Goodbye.